We are your home theater and AV questions answered. This is AV Rant. Want your home theater or AV question answered by Tom and Rob? Send it to question@avrant.com. Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrew, and I'm here with
Rob H. This is AV Rant. It's your home theater and AV questions answered, and for once with the regular hosts in a month and a half-ish type of timeline, something like that. Welcome back, weeks, Tom. Yeah. Holy smokes.
I am back, and thank you to Raj, who sent me a microphone and a arm.
Yep.
And that's... I can't remember. It all came in that thing. So, yes, thank you to Raj for that. That's the microphone I'm using right now. I didn't think I was going to get it set up in time, but I did.
Okay.
I'm also using my laptop camera because I have no other option right now. I am in my son's room because we ordered 2 desks from Amazon. And one, for whatever reason, we've been kind of toying with the idea of maybe someday getting one of those standing desks.
Yes, okay. Sure.
The ones that change height.
Yeah.
Right? So these are those. Basically, we ordered 2 of them. They're exactly the same. There's one in each of my son's room. There's no place else in this apartment that we have rented that will fit a desk for me. So we set them up in each room, and we were like, we have to order some office chairs.
Yeah.
And then we realized that while people don't have a lot of office chairs and regular chairs to just give away or lend to you, what they do have is bar stools that they upgrade all the time.
Okay, sure.
So I keep looking at the wrong place. So if it looks like I'm looking over your guys' heads, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting with the camera. I'm used to looking above my screen for the camera. So I apologize in advance if it looks like I'm...
There are multiple new things for everyone
happening
to get used to.
And plus I'm looking out a window and there's like a little lake out there and I'm looking at the lake and there's like a pool. Maybe there's nobody at the pool right now, but maybe there will be, and that would be very distracting for me. So there's somebody walking their dog. See, I'm distracted. It's your fault.
Wonderful.
I don't know how that makes it your fault. But so we have multiple bar stools, and what's great about standing desks is you can adjust their height until the bar stool fits, and now I'm sitting on a bar stool.
Okay. Not so much standing at the standing desk, because
I'm still sitting at the standing desk.
One leg down. Yes. Yep, that's what's going on. People will perhaps, if you're particularly paying attention just to the audio-only version, Tom's on a mic very, very similar to the one that I use. It is also an Audio-Technica. I think there's slightly different model numbers, but very similar idea. Has the option of both USB and XLR outputs from the microphone. We're both using USB at this moment. But these are dynamic microphones, stage-style microphones, the type that you might see a singer holding in their hand on stage.
Right.
And so I am keenly aware of how Tom does like to move around a little bit, and you might notice that in the audio too, because if he gets even just a couple of centimeters farther away, it changes the sound of his voice. Yep. That's what happens.
You're guys gonna have to get used to that. I'm sorry.
That's what it's gonna be. Yes,
it's gonna be, unfortunately. The upside is that I am in a completely, this apartment is unfurnished. There's nothing on the walls. Right. Everything is echoey as heck.
Yeah, we can hear that when it goes to the other microphone, or when Tom just goes a little farther away and yells at the microphone, so I can hear him from behind the scenes. That is a non-acoustically treated room that Tom is in at the moment. But you won't really pick that up on the microphone as long as Tom has his mouth right up on that thing. Yeah.
So the sort of update, I mean, we're not going to spend a lot of time updating, but...
I don't mind if we do. It'll be all right.
That we rented a place.
Yes.
We found a place to rent.
Okay.
Unfurnished. They were very gracious. It's a corporation, but they seem to really not understand, but they had a lot of accommodations for people who were in my situation, lost their homes.
Okay.
They understand that a lot of us have more than, we'll now have a rent and a mortgage, which is something that's hard for people to deal with, as you can imagine.
No kidding.
Insurance does not pay for that in any way, shape, or form. So you are kind of on your own with that. Your mortgage company, I don't have a mortgage, so we're not in that same situation, but it's still, I mean,
Insurance doesn't pay for like living expense while you're not able to live in the house that was destroyed?
No, it does not.
I mean, surely there must be insurance options that have such coverage, but I guess
not for flood that I'm aware of.
Oh.
No. Yeah, not for flood.
That
insurance.
seems odd.
Well, other types of insurance do.
Right. Yeah.
But this does not.
Okay.
So, we're exploring options. Everybody's sort of exploring options. So they gave you kind of lots of grace. They waived a lot of fees and stuff like that so that you could get in here kind of at a reasonable price. Mm-hmm. But it's still, it's still a bunch of money that we weren't paying out month to month beforehand. And honestly, it's more money than we can really afford. But, that's why you have an emergency fund for those of you that are, financially literate and responsible, like I am not. My wife that teach me all these things. So for those of you that are financially literate, you'll understand what an emergency fund is. And ours this is an emergency. So we're using it for this. And hopefully we will figure out a way to replenish it soon after we get back into our house. As far as the house is concerned, we've talked a little bit about it, but there's something called the 50% rule, which I think I've kind of addressed. And basically, you can only do so much work on your house, and the 50% rule target that they set, which is 50% of the price, the value of your home.
Okay.
Not the land, but the home. Mm-hmm. That's how much work you can put into it to do anything. Like any sort of improvements, or in this case, rebuilding it from nothing, from where it was. So if it costs more than 50% of the value of the home to do something, whatever it is, then you either can't do it or you have to do something else. So let's just say that your house was completely destroyed.
Right.
Ours was not. We had 3 feet of water. It's not completely destroyed. But let's say that it was completely destroyed and it was going to cost more than the 50% of the value of the home. You cannot rebuild it, or they will not give you permits for it. So you have to do it unpermitted, which makes it very hard to sell the house later or impossible. Or, and you can't get any flood insurance for it anymore. So they will not the insurers will not insure you.
Okay.
So it's very important that you stay within this 50% rule. And there's all kinds of reasons behind it and all these other things. But that's for the sake of this conversation. Yeah. That's what so if you can't stay underneath that 50%, then your options are to raise your house, which costs like $300,000 depending on the size of your house, and not necessarily every house can be raised because of reasons that I don't understand that involve engineering. Or you have to abandon the bottom floor and build another floor on top and make the bottom floor unlivable. Basically, it's just a garage. Basically, it turns into garage and storage.
Right,
and then you build another house on top of that, which, as you can imagine, is not any cheaper than doing any of the other stuff.
Plus, it was the bottom section that suffered all the damage. So the idea of building on top of that higher than the original engineering was ever designed for seems like
not every house can have that.
Yeah.
Not every house.
Seems there are risks involved in that, at least to my mind.
So there's a lot of, you have to get like inspections done, and the engineers have to come in and do all these things. So we are probably, I'm not probably, we're going to find a way to stay underneath 50% and get everything fixed, and we'll get back in the house, because we can't afford to do either of the other two things. I mean, most people can't. I mean, it's unreasonable to think that people could do those things. So, I mean, I do know some people who are. They had planned to do it anyway. Okay. And now there's like, well, now I've got this extra insurance money that I can use to go towards this thing I was thinking I was going to do. Good for them. But for us, we're going to have to use that insurance money to rebuild the house and then live in it long enough so that we can, the housing market can rebound, and then we'll sell it and move someplace where we don't have to worry about flooding as much. Okay. We are still going to stay in St. Petersburg, which means, I mean, if you're in Florida, as far as
if you're in Florida, there's the possibility that a hurricane could roll across the continent at some point.
Yes, and not only that, I mean, there's a lot of places like it was bad, and Helene came through, and storm surge lifted the water level from the bay and the Gulf and flooded all the coastal areas, which I am considered part of, even though I'm nowhere near water. But then Milton came across and dumped a bunch of water into the rivers, and the rivers were flooding for weeks after Milton left. People's houses were flooding like 2 weeks later because all the water was just slowly, draining into these rivers, and then they were overflowing dams or in other reservoir type things. And then, 2 weeks later, somebody's house, a neighborhood would flood. We have retention ponds all over the place around here, and if something happened to the drainage nearby or something like that, there's quite a few neighborhoods that, they don't have flood insurance. Why would they? They're nowhere near the coast, and those houses flooded, and they are as bad off as I feel like we have been. That's real hard when you're when you don't have any insurance that will cover it.
No insurance is bad enough when your insurance isn't going to cover more than 50%, but when it's going to cover 0%, that is worse.
Yeah, so it's very
trying times, I guess we could say.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people suffering.
No kidding.
But then there's also a vast number of people in this area who did not really suffer that much because of it, but still feel the need to complain about what little suffering they did, and they're the loudest. To be honest with you,
they have the energy to be louder.
My internet was out for 2 days. I couldn't work. I almost lost my job. I'm like, aw, shucks.
Yeah.
Whew, I'm glad you lived through that. But then there's other people I know, and I know people who have. They actually suffered through something. They had, this one lady friend of mine who I cycle with, and I had to find this out third party because she wouldn't talk to me about it because she felt like she couldn't talk to me because my situation was worse. During Helene, she came to my house to help clean up, and then during Milton, which was like a week and a half later, Milton pushed a bunch of water into her house that they had just had the windows redone, and whoever redid the windows did not seal them properly. So the sideways rain was just flowing through this windowsill, and it flooded her whole house. Or brand new addition that they had done a big upgrade to their house. Yeah. And I was like, man, that's. You can talk to me. I'm not going to be like. It's not like it's not. With my wife says. Just because my arm was amputated doesn't mean that your broken arm doesn't hurt. You can say it hurts, and I can say I know. I'm sure it does. I don't have one, but hey, that also sucks. Yeah. So
nobody can go back in time. Nobody can prevent any of this now. So it's all you can do is commiserate. That's all that's left to do at this point. Yeah.
So but then again, like I said, we had such an outpouring of help and support, and I still have people asking me if they can do stuff for me, and of course the AV Rant community has been huge. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a few minutes. I do again want to shout out to Anchor for everything they did, because I still find myself like that portable power station that they sent me. First of all, I lent it to my parents. I think I talked about that. Lent it to my parents, and my autistic brother is now like obsessed with getting one, but of course he can't get the small one that I have. He can get on their Amazon list, and he's got like $1,000 massive power station because it has 6 outlets, and he has decided he needs 6 outlets for all the things he's going to charge.
He doesn't want to be without power again. That's that's not an unreasonable thing to desire after going through that. Yeah.
And then I need is a strong word, but I decided I wanted like a power, not a bank, but like a charging station basically. And I needed a certain number of outlets, and the one that they sent me, that white one that's on this that's on here, I don't remember what it was called, but the USB hub and all those power, my wife has confiscated that. That has become hers. she carries that around everywhere,
and I don't think you're gonna blame her for that. It sounds like your wife has done a heck of a lot, and there's not going to be any complaining about her saying, hey, this is really useful to me, I think I'm going to keep it. That makes sense. Yeah.
So I went on to Amazon and ordered like a little charging station from Anchor that just like has like 4 regular USB outlets and then 4 USB-C outlets. And I just, those things are just so well made. It's just, they feel solid. It's crazy. And they're also just, as far as, how smart they are. It's like weirdly smart. Like they can like sense how much, like they tell you how much power each one's getting to each outlet and that sort of thing. So you can plug in certain things to certain, whatever for fast charging and everything. So I'm really, really quite impressed with Anchor. So I was happy to spend a little bit of money on them.
We have been singing their praises every week, and well deserved there, because that's tremendous that they were willing to help out like that. So that means a lot.
It does. It absolutely does. Yeah. We'll talk about listeners of the week in a few minutes, but I guess we should start with what we watched. Rob, what did you watch?
I guess, you know what? Just before we dig into that, I'm just going to go ahead and let people who have gotten this far into this episode let you know, keep your eyes peeled. If you were wondering, hey, are Tom and Rob going to actually make their way through all the questions? We have oodles and oodles of questions this week. The answer is we have been teasing, Lee and I have been teasing that we were going to talk about his future plans for speaker upgrades across his front 3. Never got around to it before the return of Tom, which means that Lee and I are going to record as well this week, including... we're going to have Joe Klusnick there as well. This is the plan. I'm saying this before all of this has actually taken place and recorded. We're going to see if technology allows Joe and Lee and I to actually record this evening as we intend to, but it should work. I've got a backup plan in case plan A doesn't work out. But yeah, keep your eyes and ears peeled. There should be a second episode of AV Rant this week where we will go through the stuff we teased with Lee. I think Joe has something he wants to talk about that because he was like, I'd like to make one more appearance before Tom returns. I'm like, well, too late. But we can have this special episode, and we'll do that, and we'll mop up whatever questions Tom and I don't get to this week. So Tom and I are not going to rush. We're going to ease Tom back into it, and that's a little tease for. Let's keep an eye out for another episode. And I had to ask one more question before we do our regular segment. You've got some new headphones on your head. I have to know what those are. Yeah,
these are not new.
They're not new. Okay.
These are very, very old. These are the Oppo's PM2s.
Isn't that what you had before?
No, I had the PM3s, or like the smaller ones. These are the big ones that are open back. The other ones were small ones that were closed back. There's PM1s, which are the original, that came with like the crazy expensive headband and all leather, whatever. Mm-hmm. And these are like the ones that were like $400 cheaper, that were basically the exact same headphone, except that the band wasn't as nice and the
but the drivers are the same between the PM1 and the PM2, I think was the case. And then the PM3 was the smaller closed back version, so
those died.
That had a different sound. Those didn't make it.
Those did not make it.
Okay.
These did. These were on top of my desktop, and we think my desktop made it, but we're not sure. My son he's taken it apart, and he's looked at it, and he thinks that it was not wet inside. My wife's computer, which we weren't sure about, which was mounted to the back of a monitor, it was that little Intel NUC, NUC, and that thing has made it. So she's been working on that, and I am basically there's no place to put my computer. So right. I'm just using my laptop for right now.
Okay.
Which is fine. It was just fine. But these are the Oppo PM2s. I might be switching them up at some point, but because these are open back, so I was a little bit worried. But this is dynamic mic, so I'm a little bit less concerned. And I just had to keep the volume down, which I mean, I just like to listen to myself anyway, so Rob's optional in this whole conversation.
Oh, I see. Yes, all right. That'll make podcasting easy. The hosts not listening to each other. But yeah, I think that was all the teases and updates and preamble there. So with that, I guess we can go into what was our regular show in days gone by.
Yes. So what did you watch, Rob?
Okay, so with The Penguin now having ended and wrapped up, and since I love that show so much, I needed a new series to get into, and of course, what has begun is the second and final for this version of Arcane League of Legends. That's what I'm talking about. Season 2 Arcane League of Legends, picking up some 3 years after Season 1 ended on Netflix, because they took the appropriate amount of time to make this second season. This will be another 9 episodes. They're releasing it 3 episodes at a time across 3 weeks. And as of the time that we're recording this, 2 of those arcs, 6 episodes, have been released so far, but I only watched the first 3. I watched arc 1 of season 2, the first 3 episodes of season 2, and that is as far as I've gotten here. So yes, Tom, you sound like you got something to say about that. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I started watching it too. I'm not sure if I got all the way through the 3rd. I know I started the 3rd episode. I have to watch these things when nobody else is around, which is hard to do at the best of times, but it is definitely hard to do when you're in this very small apartment. When my wife was out last night at a Boy Scout meeting with my son, and my other son was streaming, so I was like, oh, I guess I'll watch some Arcane. Yeah. Jeez. Why aren't all shows this good, Rob?
Well,
there's the real question.
Not all shows have the infinite amount of money that Riot Games have to throw at this thing, because they spent...
I don't think that's what it has to do with. Well, I mean, there's a lot of animation stuff in there that's super impressive as far as facial expressions and reactions and nonverbal cues
and very subtle movements and subtle facial expressions.
So that's money for sure.
Money
but
and
writing
time. Well, the money buys you
money.
time. That's what it is.
That's true. But the writing is what really makes it. I mean, you can have all the technology we want. I mean, I've seen plenty of movies with tons of technology and tons of money behind them with crap stories that ruin the whole thing. So why can't... I mean, writers are cheap, no offense. I am a writer. I am cheap. Why can't all shows be written this well?
Right.
I mean, it's the first season was amazing. I thought.
It was like miraculously good.
Yeah, this so far has... I'll tell you what, it doesn't ease you into it. That's for sure.
No, and you do not want to just start season 2 without having seen season 1. That would make no sense, and this one, you definitely cannot do that. This is a continuation.
Who's seen season 1, I will tell you that I was like, I remember it, but I think I maybe don't remember it as well as I should, because this is... I mean, they just hit the ground absolutely running.
Yes, they do. Yeah. The very first scenes in season 2 are very impressive. They put some effort and some time into the very opening. So they seem to have a running theme, at least through the first 3 episodes. I don't know if this will continue through all 9 episodes of season 2 at this point that I'm talking about it. But they've Riot Games has produced quite a few music videos to do with League of Legends and some of their other games that they make. And so they've basically started each of the first 3 episodes with a music video. That's more or less what they've done here. Very impressively done. Allowing the artist to be super duper creative, completely different styles in the openings to each episode in these music video montages, and they're making great use of those montages to cram a ton of information into just a series of very rapid still images in these highly stylized forms that they're using. So I mean, they're letting that little bit of extra freedom go in season 2 here. One thing I did notice, though, very fitting for the tone and the feel of where season 2 begins, the colors of everything are desaturated in this beginning part of the season. I mean, that is very intentional, but it means that some of that colorful beauty that season 1 had is subdued very, very intentionally, but it is subdued because they've muted all the colors a little bit because everything is going down, down, down. Things are, if you thought, season 1 of Arcane was a downer, I mean, they are just like, no, we're going to go farther and farther down. That's the direction we're going here at the beginning of this season for sure. We're going to take the few characters who seemed like pillars of hope and optimism, and we're going to tear them down too. There's gonna be nothing happy left after the first 3 episodes of season 2 here, which I understand storytelling wise, but it does mean that this arc maybe didn't feel as complete in and of itself as the individual arcs of season 1. This absolutely feels like we have a lot more to tell after the first 3 episodes. It doesn't feel like a completed arc the way the arcs in season 1 did. And you know, they're cramming a lot of plot into this as they did in season 1, but you know, I'm gonna throw the tiny little criticisms that I have on first watch out there, just that it's not a 100% praise fest. So I feel like, yeah, they were maybe very, very ambitious for season 2 and how much they want to cover in just 9 episodes, pulling it off as they did in season 1, but it's a challenging watch. Honestly, you're gonna have to pay attention to this one. This is not something you can have in the background. The other criticism that I felt a little bit was that in season 1, I felt like you could literally pause any frame of that show and it could be your screensaver. Like, quite literally, you could go frame by frame, and every individual frame of season 1 was poster. It was a work of art, every single frame. This one, again, because things are subdued, because they're intentionally, they've got this whole thing about flooding the lanes with these sort of toxic smoke and stuff. So there's many scenes that are just like completely smoke covered, where I'm like, well, if you just pause an individual frame of that, there's nothing really much to look at. Not that, I mean, there are tremendous scenes of beauty in this, but it's not quite the same level where literally every frame could be your screensaver, because they are obscuring things and desaturating things, and all of that is intentional. But it feels a little different from season 1 because of that. So yeah, strangely, Haley Steinfeld's voice, I don't know where they recorded her, but she does not sound like she's in the same recording studio as all the other actors. Her voice distinctly sounds different from everyone else's. I picked that up for sure. So I don't know if she was recording remotely.
It's weird, because I didn't pick that up on my laptop.
Yeah,
speakers.
On your laptop, it's probably not going to show up. No, that was a little bit strange, because with as much time and effort as they put into it, to be able to pick out that she almost sounded like, you know, how ADR sounds on live action things, where it's just like, oh, that was clearly recorded in a different vocal setting than the rest of the scene. Right. It was like, oh, Vi's voice just sounds like it's not in the same setting as everybody else's in this show. So that was a little bit strange in moments there. So anyway, it's still going to be tremendous praise. I'm very, very eager to see how all this plays out. But yeah, that's season 2 so far, arc 1. Anything other to say on that one, Tom, before I move on to the second part?
Yeah, so I see what you're saying as far as it's is not as uplifting. You know, there was for those of you that didn't watch the first season, you know, the kind of the through line was a sister trying to save a sister.
That's right,
essentially. Yeah. That you know, so there was this hope that, you know, that she was going to succeed.
With each arc of season 1, with each 3-episode arc, it was like that really was the beating heartbeat of this show, was that you focused on the 2 sisters, and the end of each arc was this portion of their life. How does this portion of their life end and transition into the next? These 2 sisters now in season 2, they're expanding a little bit. We're following the other characters, and it's a little bit less focused on the 2 sisters, and it's spreading out a little bit. So like I felt that, okay, it's not quite as focused on just those 2 central characters anymore.
The hardest part for me about this entire series is the same kind of it's probably what most people feel when they watch something like, you know, a new Star Wars series and not having seen the previous stuff, or you know, Star Trek or whatever. There's callbacks and there's characters that show up that I'm like, that's probably somebody. Like, clearly this dude with a shield that I've never seen before is somebody
from the game. Right? Who knows? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never played League of Legends, so I don't know.
I've tried to watch like some vids of people playing League of Legends, and it makes no sense to me.
And I would argue that I think it might be better to watch Arcane without any knowledge of League of Legends, because this is a show where characters die, where characters are killed, or other things happen to them. And it's like, well, if you do know all the characters from the game, you're going to know that those characters aren't going to die when they show up. But they have all these other characters who aren't necessarily in the game, or are very peripheral characters, and they could die in the show. So not having that knowledge is kind of better in a way, I think.
Yeah, in a way. And, you know, there's always like this in the back of my mind. I'm like, what am I missing? What am I missing? You know, who is this person? Are they in a character that's important, that they're excited about, or whatever, that we should all be excited about? because you know that in these games, there's usually there's like every character's got its own little weird fan base that loves them.
Yeah.
So that's fine. Anyways, but as a whole, I don't mind the more diffuse storyline.
Okay.
We're getting to
spreading it out a little bit, and they've said how they intend to keep making more animated shows within the League of Legends universe, which is huge, right? We've spent all of Arcane in one city. And I
saw a vid of somebody, talking about the world of League of Legends and the different, lands they are, and they are hugely diverse.
That's
as far as their,
so we won't be following this same group of characters, and probably won't be in this city anymore. But it'll still be within the world of League of Legends, and they'll continue on. It might not be called Arcane anymore. I don't know. I think they probably will stick with the name Arcane, and they'll give it a subtitle to make sure that that it's not these characters anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind moving away from Jinx, to be honest with you. As much as I like.
And they are intending to wrap up her story in this second season here, so that makes sense. I do feel, though, that when Jinx is not on screen in season 2, there's a lack of energy. Like, she is the one bringing all the energy in this season so far in these first.
I don't know.
Episodes.
I really like the relationship between Vi and the other person. Mm-hmm. Is that who it is? I don't know their names. Anyways, the only reason I know Vi is because I was like, I just noticed that she has
her name is tattooed on her face. Well, she's got the number 6 is tattooed, but that spells Vi. So yes.
So I just noticed that. I was like, oh, okay, and that's the only reason I remember. And then of course Jinx, I remember because she says it 30,000 freaking times. It's on posters everywhere, so it's not hard to remember. But all the rest of them, it's an interesting show. So it's definitely it's one of those ones that I wish I could get my wife to watch. She'd like it.
Yeah. But it is. You have to pay attention to this show. It is completely. You won't be able to comprehend.
She would,
anything.
as long as she was, invested in the character. So we started watching Tracker, which is a show on CBS or some crap. I don't know.
Justin Hartley, right?
Everything about League of Legends that I like is exactly the opposite. Tracker. It's like my wife gets to the end of the episode and goes, "That was dumb." Like the whole thing is just dumb.
Good old network TV.
I'm like, this whole show is based off the fact that he drives a truck and he's handsome. That's the whole show. In case you're wondering what that show is about, he occasionally takes his shirt off and he drives a big old truck. That is almost the entire show.
Assuming he tracks something.
He's supposed to track people, but let me tell you, he's got his special skills involve. He just shows up.
Okay.
And then they're there.
Yeah. That's handy. That is a good tracker.
It's just I'm like, usually, like, if you think of like the show Lie to Me, right? Which is a show I really liked for the first couple episodes before it immediately went off the rails. But
I like that.
Well, and then the main guy whose name I can never, the actor's name I can never remember.
Tim Roth. From Lie to Me.
Turned into a superhero, like can read minds. Basically, it's just like I mean the first, and then he was able to punch people, and I was like, stop punching people. You're supposed to be a scientist. Stop it. I've met scientists; they don't punch people. It's very rare. But at least the first episode of Lie to Me, you're like, this is why this person is good at what they do.
Yep.
In the very first episode of Tracker, you're like. He carried some lady out. That we already saw. That we opened the scene with her being on the ground and him being there. Like we didn't even see him find her. He just was there and then he carried her out. That was.
Yeah.
I could do that. I'm not saying that. I could carry. I don't know how long he carried her. They didn't really say. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just like a couple of feet for all I know. It's a very dumb show. Don't watch it.
Okay.
We're gonna keep watching it because my wife's like, this is something I could fall asleep to.
This you can put on in the background. Don't have to pay too much attention to, and it'll be just fine when you tune into the next episode. That's. I'm
gonna tell you what. If we've learned anything in recent years, is that when in this show he had to rescue somebody from a cult, and he shows them like 10 seconds of a video with another character lying about something that they had told him, and he immediately changes his mind and now hates the cult. I'm like, I don't think you've ever met a flat earther, because you could literally shoot them into space and they go, it's still flat. Like there's no amount of data will ever change their mind.
Well, speaking of characters being motivated by having been lied to, the movie that I watched this week was Transformers 1. That is now out on streaming on Paramount Plus, so that is the way that I watched this.
Very good.
So this is fully animated. It is the thing that many people have requested, which is, can we just have some Transformers and not have humans on the screen, like, ever at all? Like, just let's go to Cybertron and let's watch Transformers, and that'll be all that we see. And that is what this movie is. Now, it seems to, in the way that all of the Michael Bay Transformers movies supposedly took place in the same timeline, but you really have to squint your eyes and forget a lot of things to make that timeline make any sense.
No, whatever.
This kind of is a prequel to all of that. This is kind of taking place in the Michael Bay Transformers universe. He was a producer on this movie, and so some of the stylization, the whole Optimus Prime having his repeated speech that he gives at the end of every one of the Michael Bay movies, like all of those trappings are here. So I will say this isn't my favorite style of actual transformation, like just the animation style of how the robots transform. It's not my favorite style, because this is the parts and flaps just seem to come out of absolutely nowhere, and things just morph around and completely change shape. And I'm like, okay, I mean, that's fine. It's a stylistic choice.
How did Robotech get it right like a million years ago? Nice, I know Robotech was only in the United States, and it was really 3 different series that they crammed together under the Robotech banner and tried to make them loosely all fit together for the United States audience. I understand that, but at the same time, still way better than Michael Bay Transformers.
And then
movies.
The other issue that I would have is that they are on Cybertron, and it's kind of like, so why do they transform? Because there's only robots on this planet, and they don't need to be in disguise, so why do they? And then they turn into vehicles, which are not Earth-based vehicles, because they haven't been to Earth yet. This is taking place early in the timeline, and so it's like, well, he kind of, Optimus kind of turns into a truck-looking thing, but it's an alien, not quite a truck, and so that was always just a little like, why? There's no real explanation for why they transform and what they transform into, because they are not in disguise at this point, but whatever, we kind of have to look past that. But yes, this is a fairly simple tale. This is taking the idea of before Optimus Prime was Optimus Prime, he was Orion Pax, and before Megatron was Megatron, he was D16, I think. And they were friends. And I mean, I think there were versions where they were like literal sibling brothers, but here they're bros. They're not actually blood related, if robots have blood, whatever that would be, energon related. But they are bros, and they work together, and they are rising up through the ranks, and that is the whole thing. And then they discover they were lied to. Getting back to that transition that we just had, and they take diverging paths, as you would expect Optimus Prime and Megatron to do, with how they react to realizing that they have been lied to. And this is explaining where that rift came from, and where Megatron ends up at the end of this movie, and the people that he has surrounding and supporting him. That didn't make a lick of sense. That was kind of Optimus just saying, I think instead of having a 2-minute conversation, because we're still friends at this point, we still care about each other at this point, we still have all of that. We've diverged. We've butted heads because we didn't agree how we should react to the lie that we discovered. But instead of having that 2-minute conversation, I think you should leave, and I'll also give you an entire army to help you leave, who everything about this army that we met, everything that they said that they're about, everything they care about, what matters to them, whom they would decide to follow, they would 100% follow Optimus Prime. He proved every value that they said that they espoused to. This is why they would choose him as their leader. We're just going to go with Megatron anyway, because we already know who these characters are. It's, Starscream and Soundwave and Shockwave and that, and they have to be on the Decepticon side, so why don't you all just go with Megatron for no real reason?
Writers are cheap. You know, you're not saving money by not hiring good writers. I mean, you're saving a little bit, but you're not saving like producer level money,
right?
You know, so the producer that you had help you write this story, you didn't save any money by doing that.
Writing to a conclusion that was already pre-written, and they seem to struggle with that a little bit. So I mean, the thing was, this was a fun movie. This was pretty funny. You know what? It reminded me in a lot of places of the Super Mario movie. It was to me, it was kind of that level. I don't think it was quite as consistently funny throughout because you didn't have a Jack Black playing Bowser in here, but you did have Keegan-Michael Key essentially being Toad, but just wrapped up in Bumblebee because it's the same voice actor playing the same role. And so, I mean, he's funny in this because Keegan-Michael Key is always funny. But yeah, you also had Chris Hemsworth. He is now Optimus Prime's voice. He is struggling with not sounding Australian at moments, that is for sure. And then by the end of it, he's doing his best Peter Cullen impression and pulling it off pretty well, to be honest.
Oh, that's good.
But yeah, so I mean, I had fun with this movie. Absolutely. This is meant to be an all ages movie, 100%. So if you were looking for this to be like the dark and gritty reboot of Transformers, it absolutely is not that whatsoever. It's the opposite direction, which is the right direction. This is supposed to be for kids.
Can we stop doing dark and gritty? I love dark and gritty, but
yes.
Dark and gritty immediately turns to boring and stupid,
right.
Almost.
So
you know,
I don't think
I
I
can
can
tell
say
you how not excited I am about the next Batman movie just from the poster.
Okay.
I'm just like,
well, given how good the Penguin
poster.
was, I'm very much looking forward to the Batman. But yes, I can't say that I was as over the moon praising Transformers 1 as I saw a lot of those reviews. But that doesn't mean I didn't have a lot of fun with this movie because I absolutely did. If you want some fun entertainment, if you were ever a fan of the Transformers, if you're going to be like, hey, there's some fun designs and there's some fun character moments, that's what this movie is, and it's a good time. And watch it with your kids.
Just don't look too closely at it. That's the thing, right? Look at it through a childlike
absolutely
eyes.
And I mean, if this had been the pilot to a new Transformers series, it would be the best Transformers pilot to a TV series there has been. So if you put it on that level, that's what we're talking about. And maybe that's what all the effusive praise was about, because if you're viewing it through that lens, this was a great pilot for a new series.
Well, as long as it's an animated Transformers movie that didn't immediately kill all of your favorite characters at the very beginning of it, it's already a success.
Although they did kill off a bunch.
I was so traumatized. I saw the Transformers movie in the theaters, and I was like, well, who died?
That was after the 2 seasons of the show, though, so you had all of that backdrop.
I know. What are they doing? They can't just go, who's Rodimus Prime?
I know.
Who's Rodimus Prime? I don't care about this person.
He's your young stepfather. That's who Rodimus Prime was, which is why none of the kids liked him.
I'm never going to call you daddy.
Transformers, the original Transformers series, that was a show about kids and their fathers, and that's why so many kids gravitated towards it.
All right. This is AV Rant, the podcast that answers your home theater and AV questions. To get your questions answered, all you have to do is ask. You ask by emailing us at question@avrant.com. Mm-hmm. You can come to the website. You can find our episodes, show notes, links to products and information that we talk about on this podcast. You can also find older episodes. Let's see. Flickr albums, so you can follow along with the pictures that we will be speaking, of which we will be speaking. Technically, I could put Rob on the other. I have 2 monitors in here.
Okay.
And it sounds like I'm like super high tech now, but my wife found on like a Buy Nothing group like a free monitor and a free keyboard, and it's all very old and it has weirdly weird like it has weird lines in it and stuff. So whatever, it's fine. Okay. It's fine for what I'm doing with it, which is just looking at it. Yeah. So I could put him up there, but he doesn't. I couldn't see the pictures anyways. You can contact us. You go facebook.com/AVRant podcast, youtube.com/AVRant. You can contact Rob directly. Rob@AVRant.com. His socials is @FirstReflect. Are you on Blue Sky yet?
Yep, I grabbed my handle there a while back, so I am there, and I'm going to try to be there more. I was kind of getting used to using Threads a bit more, but it seems like everybody's leaving everything for Blue Sky at this point, so I guess that's where I'll be.
I did grab a Blue Sky handle today. So whatever.
Okay.
I'm not going to use it.
Okay.
Tom at AVRant.com. You can send your email there, and I will technically eventually get it.
Yes.
just not really the way. I need to just start forwarding all that to an email that I actually check.
That would make sense.
Would be kind of the way to go there. All right. I want to thank our listeners of the week. To be a listener of the week, to support the podcast in some way. One of the ways you can do that is going to avrant.com, click on the Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link, and send us a PayPal donation. Dan did that this week, and Raph did that this week. So,
that's right. That money,
thank you very much, Dan and Raph.
The PayPal money still going to Tom and his family. That's the deal for the foreseeable future for sure. Dan and Raph, thank you very, very much for sending in those PayPal donations. That's really appreciated all around.
Yes, and if you want to support us monthly, you can go to patreon.com/AVRant podcast, where you can sign up to become a monthly contributor. We have 132 patrons right now, so thank you very much to all of you.
That is right. That is patreon.com/AVRant podcast. If you'd like to sign up to make an automatic monthly donation, that's going to pay all the bills behind the AV Rant scenes there, and very, very helpful that the folks have signed up to do that. So 132 patrons holding strong, and thank you all very much for your financial support.
We do thank you. If you can't support us financially, do something to support us, and we will mention it here. So Ryan offered to send me, there's a bunch of people sent me a bunch of stuff, which we'll talk about in a second. But Ryan offered to send me an NHT SC1 center speaker. He also has a small Mirage Omni S8 sub that he has no use for himself, but he wasn't sure if I would want that. He doesn't want his storage items to just turn into Tom's storage items. So there is a little bit of that going on right now because people are sending me stuff that I intend to use later, but I can't use in this particular instance.
Okay.
A small center would actually be useful because I will just put it with my plan is to set up the KEF speakers when they arrive, the receiver. Somebody gave us a TV, like a local person gave us a TV, an old LG, older LG. I don't know, Rob. How old is that TV? I sent you the
You
the
did
back
send
of
me the thing, and I am now forgetting. I did look it up, but I think it was 2019 or something like that. I think it was around 2019. Yeah.
Anyways, so it's an older LG
LCD
something.
TV. Yep.
LCD TV. So the problem is that it was wall mounted and they lost the stand. So I have to, and I have nothing to put it on yet. I have no furniture. Furniture is like the hardest thing to get right now. So we're trying to figure out the furniture situation. We're going to take the furniture and once we get some furniture, we'll buy a stand for it. We'll put it on the stand and so a small center would actually be useful in this apartment. And then I will eventually, like all this stuff will find a home. So if you are like, I just don't have any use for this right now, don't worry. I've got 3 boys. They will eventually, God willing, move out.
And you know plenty of other people who also lost things and might be in need of some item here or there. So it'll find. There's actually I don't want to call them. They're calling it a market, but it's essentially this one person has taken it upon themselves to be for my neighborhood, like a distribution center for people who need things. So I can definitely pay forward things that if you send me and I don't end up using. So Ryan also offered a Mirage Omni S8 sub that he has no, like I said, no use for. That could be useful in here. It could eventually be useful in an office environment for me. So I think that would be fine to send as well. So there it is. If you're willing, Ryan, go ahead and send both of those things. He was definitely in the process of already sending that center speaker, which is smaller than the other center speaker that we know you already received, and we'll talk about in just a second.
It is ginormous. The box is ludicrously large. I'm hoping there's so much packing material in there because that thing is immense. My wife, I brought it into the apartment. My wife looked at me and went, I said, don't worry.
Yep.
We're not going to set it up in here. I'm going to wait until we get back home. We'll set it up at home. I promise. I won't set it up in here. It's got top firing woofers. It's ludicrous.
Yes.
So we also, like I said, we got a bunch of items have arrived. I got Saucy's Harmony Elite, which is in a box in the apartment waiting for me to have enough things to control it with.
Okay.
Vince sent me an Amazon gift card. Thank you very much for that. Tony, of course, the DefTech Center that we were just talking about that is ridiculously large.
I mean, it does have a powered bass driver in it. You plug it into a wall and there's a powered bass driver in there. So who needs a sub?
Who needs a sub? Obviously, Raj sent me this microphone and desk arm, which I'm using right now. And there's other items that we know that are on the way. So that's everything I've got. Oh, I got the Triad is it Triad
Oh,
speakers?
Triad Bronze, those arrived. Okay.
Those arrived,
Okay.
and the in-wall speakers arrived that he sent. And again, those are things that I will be using. The Triads may be here. Maybe we will see if I can get them set up. The couches barely fits in this little space.
But yeah, those Triad speakers are nice and compact, so those could work.
Yeah, I might have to just kind of like balance them up on the edges of the sofas. Because and then against the walls or whatever, or maybe stick them somehow with like command strips, or maybe I don't know. We'll see. But again, that's kind of, my wife is very, and me too. We're not planning on being here for a super long, hopefully super long period of time. For those of you that, and I didn't really get to it at the opening, there is no yet set date on construction even starting. Yeah. We're still looking at. Because we have to figure out that 50% rule so that we can make sure that we're not spending too much money, because any money that we spend if we spend too much, just literally we've screwed ourselves. So we have to be very careful about that. Let me see. Okay, so Greg decided to take Rob's word for it. He went ahead and ordered 5 speakers from Ascend Acoustics, their flagship Sierra ELX towers with raw ribbon tweeters. You never talk about Ascend Acoustics.
Right. Not enough, anyway.
Yeah. So the matching Sierra ELX Horizon Raw Center and a pair of Sierra 2 EXV2 bookshelf speakers to use as surrounds. He got to speak with Dave and Dina over Ascend, so he made sure to put in a good word about us.
Yeah.
Make sure you talk about me specifically, since I'm the only one that talks about Ascend on this stupid podcast. He ordered all 5 speakers in the cherry finish. That's very pretty, by the way. And they went out of their way to make sure they all match visually as closely as possible. And they used a couple of different laminated bamboo suppliers. And by default, the bookshelf speakers have a slightly different finish versus their Horizon and Tower speakers. But the folks at this end wanted to make sure his new system would all look perfect together. Yeah. So the customer service experience has been great. And they've sent him some photos of his new speakers in production. And he thought that would be fun to share with all of us. So here's some pictures. Yes,
that's right.
That cherry wood finish is very pretty.
Yeah, because you can still see a bit of the natural bamboo grain. It's laminated bamboo for the cabin. It's very, very, very strong material, very inert. You don't really need much bracing. They still put bracing instead of Ascend speakers, but you really don't need much bracing in here to make these cabinets inert. So yeah, beautiful looking speakers. I know those are going to sound absolutely fantastic for you. So yeah, I don't think he's got too many worries or qualms about having ordered these things on my word about it. And you can look forward to those. That's going to be a fun treat when they arrive for sure.
So we're getting this of gratitude for keeping the podcast going through.
Yeah.
I don't really think much has been going on.
Gestures broadly all around. Yes.
Listen to the echo.
What a decade
Mohsen,
the past 2 weeks have been.
Yes, they have been. Mohsen, John, Hector, Tony, Raf, Carlos, David, and Mark. Mark's a member of the 2 Hour Plus Club for life.
Yeah, that's right.
So thank you to all of you for thanking us.
Yeah, I'll say those names one more time. Mohsen, John, Hector, Tony, Raf, Carlos, David, and Mark. Thank you all so much for the notes of gratitude and encouragement. Very much appreciate them. Thank you to Greg. Thank you to Ryan. Thank you, Saucy Vince, Tony, Raj, and everybody else who's sending things as well. And I'd be remiss if I don't say now, thank you to Lee Overstreet and thank you to Joe Kluznik for having been my guest co-hosts and long-term pinch hitters as we went along here throughout this time. So yeah, thanks all around, and thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
All right, in the news, we've become pretty familiar now with TCL as a consumer electronics brand, but much like how there's a distinction between LG Electronics and LG Display, or Samsung Electronics and Samsung Display, TCL also has a separate R&D manufacturing division called CSOT, which is China Star Optoelectronics Technology. Yeah. Optoelectronics Technology. Rolls right off the tongue. I'll be honest, it's so funny. There are... they're brands of tires, bike tires, that it used to not be able to sell hardly because it said China something. I don't remember what it was, or Chinese something. And they changed their names to just an abbreviation. It's like CST or something like that. Okay. And now people are perfectly fine buying them because they don't read the fine print.
They do look at the price, which is probably lower.
The price is fine. You know, I mean, it's funny to think we occasionally have people come in and like, oh, I just want to buy American. I'm like, okay. So You can't.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Even if you wanted to, you couldn't, but whatever. I must say, and TCL CSOT just had their Display Tech Ecosystem Conference, or DTC 2024.
Yeah.
Whatever. This is all dumb. Last week, where they made a couple of big announcements. They have now begun mass production of 4K resolution inkjet printed RGB OLED panels, which is cool.
Yeah.
I will take it. It's just nice. Using inkjet printing to manufacture displays has long been envisioned as an ideal way to lower costs while allowing for higher resolutions at smaller screen sizes, and prototype inkjet printed displays have been demonstrated at trade shows for over a decade, but TCL
It's just CSOT. Everybody calls them CSOT.
CSOT is the first to go into mass production, starting with a 22-inch professional monitor intended for the medical field. Because when you want to sell something overpriced,
yep,
you sell it to doctors.
That's what we do. Sell it to the medical profession. They can expense that thing. I mean, it's either that or
Have
military,
you ever seen
right?
somebody spend $22,000 on a little plier thing looking thing?
Mm-hmm.
That's a special angle in stainless steel, so you could grab a very specific tool or a very specific part of the inside of somebody's body. That was a doctor that paid for that.
Yeah.
So that's what they're used to, overpaying for things. So there you go. I'm gonna have to turn down the input on this because I'm clipping. They also showed a 27-inch version intended for consumer displays that they intend to release in 2025 after they make enough money to pay for them from the doctors.
That's about it.
The 27-inch version has a side-by-side OLED subpixels and an RGB layout, so it should provide perfect text rendering without any of the color fringing issues or of other current monitors. At 27 inches, it has 4K resolution with 120 hertz refresh rate, 250 nits of full screen light output, and 600 nits of peak light output.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's not the very brightest HDR of any OLED display, but it's no slouch. And, for a first-generation product that they're coming out there, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens with this. Yeah.
So, TCL CSOT also showcased the application of their inkjet printing process for another new type of display, electroluminescent quantum dots, or QDEL. I hate this. Why am I in this industry? So mad.
Quantum dot, electroluminescent, so QDEL.
Why are consumers confused by the different display technologies that are out there? I don't know. Why can't you guys come up with a name that doesn't sound like every other name that's already out there?
I mean, the thing was, QDEL displays originally were QLED, but, Samsung stole that and made their quantum dot LED backlit LCD displays into QLED, so they had to give up the QLED name and it became QDEL. Yes.
I hate it. QDEL displays use red, green, and blue quantum dots that are directly stimulated by electrical signal, and Scott showed off a prototype 14-inch QDEL display that was inkjet printed with 2.8K resolution. 120 hertz refresh and over 85% BT 2020 color gamut coverage. So there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting that of all the companies, it's gonna be TCL, their CSOT division there, because I mean they did when Japan OLED. I don't know exactly what happened to them. I forget if they declared bankruptcy or were just looking for a buyer, but it was TCL CSOT that came in and obtained many of the sort of patent portfolio and stuff like that Japan OLED used to have. Japan OLED was the leading researcher into inkjet printing, micro LEDs and OLEDs and other forms of these tiny little light producing things and having to put them onto some kind of electrical substrate, and inkjet printing has been long sought after as the more cost efficient means and being able to more densely pack these tiny little pixels. So TCL has kept at it, and they're going to be the world's first mass producing inkjet printed OLED panels. It's finally happening.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I hope they come up with another name that involves Q,
Got to.
O, L, and D in some.
There's no
form.
way it could get mixed up.
Might want to stick an E in there somewhere.
Electroluminescent, I don't know if you can get everybody saying that, so that's a challenge.
All right, some questions here. Yeah. Andrew has a couple of APC UPS battery backup units, a back UPS 700 VA and a back UPS XS 1500. You need a replacement battery for the 700 VA unit. He uses that to protect his Wi-Fi router and one of his Wi-Fi mesh units and an Ethernet to fiber converter. It isn't a huge power draw. He bought a replacement lithium-ion battery pack. The spec on it for how many watts it should be able to deliver was way more than the networking equipment he had plugged into it, but it died after only 1 hour. And the battery seemed to be completely dead, wouldn't recharge at all. He called this Local Batteries Plus. They said his specific lithium-ion battery pack was cheap and unreliable, and that the back UPS units don't work well with the aftermarket lithium-ion packs, only the lead-acid replacement batteries. So, of course, they wanted to sell him what they have in stock, which are Duracell dry cell battery packs that cost as much as the lithium-ion pack he had purchased. But he was under the impression that lithium-ion batteries should be superior. So can we explain, is it missing something? I mean, I'm literally coming into this as blind as humanly possible because I didn't scroll past. I didn't even get to the news in this thing.
I mean, nothing too much new there.
Tell you, as somebody who has dealt with these sorts of technologies before, they are extremely finicky.
Yeah.
And if that unit is expecting a certain type of battery and you put a different battery, superior or no, it doesn't necessarily mean it's upgrading. It's not like you can reverse the quantum field like you can in Star Trek and suddenly everything works. You kind of have to be very careful about what you think you're upgrading.
I mean, this isn't like this really about the chemistry of the battery. That's kind of immaterial. What's at play here are the little controller chips, the little controller function that controls how the battery is recharged and discharged. It sounds as though whatever aftermarket replacement battery you purchased, it might have. Oh, I mean, clearly it physically fit. That's all fine and good. You might have put it into their search box. You might have put in your model of APC and, this might have shown up as a compatible replacement battery pack. But if that replacement battery pack has a different little controller chip for how it charges and discharges, it might be attempting to draw more current than the little feeder, lines are ready to produce, or it's trying to discharge less current than what the unit is calling for. Like, it doesn't take a whole lot of a mismatch between the voltage and amperage levels that are expected, or there could be an impedance mismatch that's going on, between these little controller chips and what they're being plugged into. So I think there's a decent enough chance that, there absolutely is no reason why chemistry-wise you couldn't have a lithium-ion battery pack that plugs into your APC back UPS unit and will function perfectly fine. It's just that whatever unit you actually received from wherever you ordered it, I mean, maybe it wasn't the exact right model number. There are lots of APC physically compatible battery packs that will physically fit in and they have the right plugs in the right places, but they don't necessarily charge and discharge at the correct rates or the correct voltage or the correct amperage or whatever it is, and I'm pretty sure that's what happened here. It might be that there really is another lithium-ion replacement battery pack that looks exactly the same, at first glance, but they shipped you the wrong one. It could be as simple as that. And the one that you got would have worked perfectly in some other APC, unit that is expecting that exact same levels and that. So it's not that it has to be a lead acid battery. I mean, it could be a nickel metal hydride battery. It could be some other, It could be a rechargeable alkaline. As long as the controller chip is correct, that's really what matters here. So yeah, I mean, it's worth your while making sure you do get one that is fully compatible with whatever replacement you need. Because, I mean, I've run into this. It's, some of the older APC battery backups that are discontinued units now, right? You can't buy those units anymore. You can still go and search and you can still find plenty of the replacement batteries, but some of them, the original APC branded replacement batteries just don't exist anymore. They went away 7 years after they discontinued the unit, and I'm not expecting that. There are these aftermarket ones, but you'll find ones where, you're reading through through some reviews and like, oh yeah, this physically fit, but it did not work. It wouldn't recharge, or it discharged the battery really, really fast, and there's no reason why it should have done that. None of that is the chemistry of the battery. It's all the interface and the controller chips. So it's worth your while getting one that is for sure compatible, or making sure you buy from a place where you can exchange or return if it doesn't work for you. Yeah.
Right. I mean, and again, I'm going to make some, because I've been working on a lot of bikes lately. Mm-hmm. So, because that's the only thing I can do, I have been able to do consistently. We can look up online constantly about compatibility of different parts, and sometimes you put them together and they're like, yeah, technically they're compatible.
Right, yeah. They physically fit together, sure.
Technically, this shifter will work with that derailleur sort of thing. And then you put them together, like, yeah, it works, but it doesn't work great, and it never works right. It never works as good as you expect it to.
Or you're
and
constantly
then you put the
having to adjust it.
Or you can never adjust it just so that all the gears work. Like smooth, either one side works or the other side works, right. But you can't get them all to work. Mm-hmm. And just swapping out for something that is the exact same one that you should have put in there to begin with. Yeah. Suddenly it's what you spend an hour trying to get something that should work to work. You put something on there that is actually compatible, and it's like, 5 minutes, I'm done. Mm-hmm. It took me longer to put the thing on there than it did to adjust it. Ilango's basement renovation is finally done. He'll have photos to share of the home theater at a later date. Incorporating all of the soundproofing was so much work. But his question today is about the home gym. He wants to get a 50-inch 4K TV to mount on a swing arm in the back left corner of the gym, and he doesn't want to spend more than $600 Canadian on it. Mm-hmm. I don't know, $600 Canadian is what, $100 American? I can't remember.
It's about $400 these days. Yeah.
It won't be any sort of critical viewing, but there's going to be quite a lot of ambient light he was having, and having wide viewing angles would be really nice. He's come across some option that fit his budget and desire for a 50-inch screen size at Costco, but any other Canadian retailers are also fine by him. Do we have any suggestions? And there's a picture here for those of you that are not whatever. It's a
long room.
It's a very long room.
It's a long empty room. Yeah.
You'd be surprised. So through this process of me losing my house and everything, and asking, people offering me things, you'll be surprised how many people have plasma TVs that they're like, we just have them. I literally had somebody call me the other day and was like, I got this old plasma TV. Do you want it? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, plasmas are pretty good. He goes, well, this one's not. I'm like, okay, all right. But in your case, I hate to say it, but I would really not buy new if at all possible. Okay. You know what I mean? As much as a new one would be nice, and then it would be reliable and all those other things, what you really kind of need is just something that's bright and you can just shove in there. And then as long as whatever mount you get, is kind of a universal mount, I would look at the Facebook Marketplace. I would look at the Buy Nothing groups that are out there, because we've got those like crazy in this area. I don't know about his area, but that would be the kind of way I would go, because then you end up with like, well, I've got this TV. The viewing angles are exactly what I want. It's not quite as bright as I want, or maybe it's everything you want. You don't really know, but what it is cheap.
Right. Okay.
And then if it falls off the wall, or if you're throwing around a kettlebell and it hits it, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm out $600. No, you're out $75 or $100 or $150 or something like that. So that would be my suggestion in these things. Sure. Too often, especially as AV enthusiasts, we get hung up on performance regardless of usage, or use case. We're like, oh, I want something that's this, and I want something that's that. And the next thing you know, you've gone down the rabbit hole. You're like, okay, well, I'm going to get this OLED.
Well, that's just, there are 48-inch OLEDs. So, if you wanted that definitely perfect wide viewing angle, you could go get yourself a 48-inch OLED, but that will definitely blow your $600 Canadian budget.
Right.
So, just to answer the question as wrote, if he is just buying brand new, Best Buy, all kinds of Black Friday sales right now. So it's a pretty decent time to buy. Now, my normal go-to, because the 50-inch size is, these days, less easy, less typical to find than the 55-inch size, but he was pretty specific that the space that he has, he wants a 50-inch. So you don't have the entire plethora of options to choose from to begin with, because not every series goes below 55 inches at this point. But then to hit that under $600 Canadian price point and the 50-inch size, my normal go-to here would be a TCL Q6 series. Be the Q651 at this point for the 2024. As of today, when we were recording, when I looked it up, they were selling that for 400 Canadian dollars brand new over at Best Buy for the 50-inch size. But it's 450 very commonly. I think the retail price is 500. So regardless, it's going to be under your $600 mark for sure. Now, the thing is, this does not have great wide viewing angles. It definitely does not. This is a VA panel. It is not full array local dimming, so you're relying on the native contrast of the panel, which is pretty darn good. Like, as far as affordable LCDs go, what I like here is it is a full direct backlight, so you're not going to have the stupid edge lighting where the bottom strip of the screen is, white, and then the rest of it gets progressively dimmer up towards the top, like so many inexpensive TVs look. Just really horrible. This is nice, even backlighting, but it's not full array local dimming, and it's a VA panel, so it's got pretty narrow viewing angles. But that said, it's a nice looking TV. It's affordable. It's bright, right? This will do 400 nits full screen sustained all day long. It's a nice bright TV, and I think that's going to matter the most. He did mention, like, since he knows he's mounting it on a movable swing arm, he's like, well, if the viewing angles aren't fantastic, usually it's going to be one person in his household in the gym. So you aim the TV at you, and now it's fine. And then, you move to a different piece of equipment, you move the TV a little bit. It's not the end of the world. So that's probably my go-to. If, on the other hand, you're just like, well, I really don't want to have to touch it and I really do want good off-axis viewing, then I would point you to, strangely for me, I don't usually like recommending LG LCD TVs, but LG LCD TVs are where you go when you want an IPS or an ADS panel, which is the other type of LCD technology that has the wide viewing angles, but not very good contrast. This thing, the blacks are gray. They are not black. They are never going to look black. Even in a brightly lit room, you're still like, that's gray. That's
never going to work out in a dark room anyway, so who cares?
It's not quite as bright as the TCL Q6, but it's no slouch. It's around 300 nits sustained instead of 400 nits sustained. So it's noticeable if you had them side by side. That's not as bright, but it's still bright enough to overcome the ambient light in your room. And this would be LG's UT7570 series, because they actually have a different UT7 something 100 series that uses VA panels. So in that case, there's no reason to get that one over the TCL, but the UT7570 series that uses the ADS style panels, not very good contrast, but very good wide viewing angles. And that goes for about $500 Canadian. So what I would advise you, if you're considering those two from my recommendation here, some Best Buy in your area will have those two on display, so have a look at them. Go to a store and have a look.
And this is like the one time you can go to the Best Buy.
You can go to a Best Buy and
just look at them and go, that one's brighter. I like that one.
Yeah. I think you'll end up with the TCL Q6 is a nice, like, it's not exactly entry level, but it's pretty close to entry level prices. And I'm just like, that's a pretty solid TV. Most people are going to be pretty darn happy with a TCL Q6. But yeah, narrow viewing angles for sure.
I will say though, if you really want 50 inches, like, those are the old TVs that are out there. They're all like 50s because that was the biggest that anybody could get back in the day. So those are the old used TVs, and then if you end up with this mount that can hold a 50-inch plasma, guess what else can hold? Literally anything.
Definitely.
Adriano in Australia. Adriano is considering a projector upgrade. He's had his Epson TW9200, same as the 5030 UB since 2016. It's 1080p with no HDR. He has it ceiling mounted with a Prismasonic.
Yes, that's the brand name, Prismasonic.
Yeah. Anamorphic lens on the motorized sled in front of it. With just projector, it throws a 91-inch 16:9 image. And with the anamorphic lens in place, it throws a 116-inch diagonal 2.4:1 aspect ratio image. His screen is 107 inches wide, and he has motorized masking on the sides to switch between the smaller 16:9 image and the larger CinemaScope image. A constant image height setup. His whole screen is motorized and it can retract and has side tensioning, and it's white, 1.0 gain material, screen material. This man has invested a lot into this, so me convincing him that he should just get a 16:9 screen is probably not going to happen. But let's go forward. He's definitely making it known that he is not going to.
That is why I included all the information here for sure as he wrote it in. But this is not a fully dedicated room. We'll describe that in a little bit. But yeah, we got white ceiling, we got some white surfaces in this room, so it's not a bat cave.
Yeah. So he's been wanting to upgrade for a while, and he wants to feel like his image has more punch. To him, that would mean brighter with higher contrast and more saturated colors, or HDR is the word you're looking for. Yeah. But there are more factors to consider. Ideally, he'd like anything that replaces his projector to be physically smaller. Certainly no bigger than his current Epson, as the room is actually multi-purpose and serves as a family room as well as a theater. The projector... bug in here. The projector and anamorphic lens are positioned behind a small partial wall that visually separates the family room from the kitchen area at the back. He purposely wanted the projector out of sight so its light fires through a hole that's been cut in the partial wall. If the projector he is considering is so good that it would be worth moving the projector mount in front of the partial wall, though, he's willing to consider that. There will be pictures, so go to YouTube.
You can have a view of this. I mean, when I say partial wall, like it's a tiny little section of a wall. It's like basically a support column that's a little bit wider than a column, but that's the projector's hiding itself behind there with a rectangular hole cut in that column there so that the light can shine through.
So he's working with a budget and the equivalent of about $2,500 US dollars as the maximum he'd want to spend right now. He's also thinking he would actually like to do away with his anamorphic lens. Mm-hmm. My guy, here we go. But not his constant image height screen setup. That just means lens memory, really.
Yep.
He says the lens has always slightly softened the image, so if possible, he'd rather just rely on zooming the image in and out, which again is just going to be lens memory.
Yep.
So there are pictures. I'm looking at them right now, and he's got it kind of, that's... Yeah, I'd want to get rid of that sled too. It's kind of goofy looking up there. It's bad enough that there's this projector hanging from the ceiling, but like seemingly facing a wall.
Yep.
But to also have the sled in front of it looks a little weird. But whatever.
But that's why he hid it behind a wall, so you don't really see it.
It's such a weird wall. Look at the picture that's in front of. There's a picture on, like it looks like he just set this wall up on top of a counter that wasn't supposed to have a wall on it at all. Like
I mean, I'm sure there was a support
simply
column
to physically hide this thing.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, there might be, but why? It's weirdly why. It's just weird. It's weird. Well, and then it's whatever. I've lived in Australia. I know that sometimes their buildings are weird. To be honest with you. Of particular interest to him is a Kickstarter project for an RGB laser-driven projector in a lifestyle chassis that has garnered some hype in the circles that he's been reading. It's from a brand called Valerian.
I think it's Valerian.
Valerian?
Yeah, Valerian.
Like the movie?
I don't know.
Valerian?
I think that's spelled differently, wasn't that? Wasn't the movie spelled differently? There's a Valerion is the name brand here. Yeah.
He's interested in their highest end $2,200 USD offering called the Vision Master Max, that angers me on a very, very visceral level. You can't be Master and also Max. Pick one.
Well, because they have Vision Master as the sort of series, and they got like a Vision Master Pro and a Vision Master Max.
I see how they got here.
Yeah.
And yet, it's still dumb. So, anyways, it's supposed to start shipping in May 2025. Let me just tell you something about Kickstarter.
Yeah. Kickstarter.
Tell you what, get ready to wait. It's a small black cube-shaped form factor with a claimed 3000 ISO light. ISO.
They didn't say lumens. They just said 3000 ISO.
That's the kind of thing that Epson sues you over, ISO, in case you're wondering.
What?
Light output in a 15,000:1 contrast with a 1.5 times optical zoom and vertical lens shift, and a dynamic iris with dynamic tone mapping and Dolby Vision support. Right. Yeah, it sounds like lies. He has to admit, though, he isn't totally sure it's the right choice for a setup, which is why he's asking us and hoping to make a decision before the Kickstarter price increases soon. I will just tell you, just if you're hovering your hand over the button right now,
I'm not quite sure why the hype worked on him with this one. There's
nothing about this that makes me think you should do it.
I'm going to spoil the answering here because this is a very no, this is not the choice for you. This Valerian Vision Master, whether it's the Vision Master, the Pro, or the Max version, this ain't it. This ain't what you're looking for. Especially if you wanted to get rid of that anamorphic lens, this doesn't have motorized zoom. This doesn't have lens memories.
Yeah,
you need a horrible experience for that.
Yeah, you need all of that to do the thing that you want to do. If not, you'll have to
that's the basics. It's just completely missing a feature that you absolutely want and need. But all the other stuff, no way. Anyway, but there's more interesting things he has to ask.
He does. How can he tell if their claim specs are to be believed?
It's on Kickstarter. They're not to be believed.
Yeah. That's just Kickstarter is like the Mos Eisley of the internet. It's a den of lies and thieves. And that the hype from the early beta testers about its deep black levels and impressive image are all just marketing fluff rather than genuine performance.
Well, yeah, if you can turn the laser off, black is as black as your ambient room can be. But as soon as this is no different. This is the same RGB laser light engine that we've seen in a gazillion $1,500 DLP projectors. This is DLP. That's what it is, DLP. So it's not great black levels, not great contrast. They're claiming 15,000 to 1, which is like, are you missing 2 zeros? What the heck happened? No, this ain't it, man. I don't know why the hype worked on him on this one. This is very strange to me, but regardless, we'll try to set you straight in no uncertain terms. Don't buy this thing, man. This is not what you want.
You probably already did though. So, but that's
retract your Kickstarter bid.
So can he directly compare their claimed numbers with Epson's? No. Because that ISO number means nothing. In fact, Epson is going to sue them over it at some point. You can go to AV Gadgets and you will see Epson's. Yeah. They don't play when it comes to those numbers. They get real mad about you making claims about outputs that is not lumens. Is it apples to apples? No. It is not. Or would their numbers actually? What would their actual numbers actually be if it were an apples to apples comparison? Who knows?
Well, like I say, this is the same RGB laser light engine as all the others, which it is reasonably bright. It's like even after calibrate, because one thing is that RGB laser light engine that they're using really does do wide color. Like they're doing the 110% Rec 2020, but that is completely inaccurate. It's not actually the Rec 2020 color points. So it's not that you can truly do 100% of Rec 2020, but it is really wide color because it is lasers. It is separate RGB lasers. That's legitimate. So it does have truly wide color. And then, people have been getting usually about 1,700, 1,800 lumens out of it, which is a lot. Like that's a lot of lumens to come out of a small projector like this. It is genuinely impressive when you're getting these like $1,500 versions of this. It's like you get this little cube of a projector. It's quiet. It turns on really fast. You're getting 1,800 lumens legitimately out of those things. Like that, it's all impressive stuff. I'm not saying that there's no application for a projector like this. There absolutely is. It's not that. But comparing it to a dedicated home theater projector like an Epson is just no. They're not the same thing. Epson has projectors like this to compete head to head with this using their LCD technology instead of DLP, but there's equivalence to this. Right.
So he says if the Valerian Vision Master Max is not his best option, what is there anything that would allow him to keep his current setup as is but minus the anamorphic lens while providing him the added punch he is looking for and staying within his budget? Okay, so the things that you're looking for from a projector standpoint is motorized zoom and lens memory. Those are the things that you are looking for here. You need those to get what you want, which is the constant height and then being able to switch between them. And you can find that. There's no doubt.
Well, you'd stick with Epson and you get a 50-50 UB. It's as simple as that. Like that. Or what is that? A TW9400 in Australia, I think it is. But you can quite easily look that up since I neglected to do that beforehand. But it's the 50-50 UB. It's in terms of getting the price point that you're after. That's the only game in town. It's the only game in town that's going to be an improvement in picture quality over the 50-30 UB, essentially, that you already have, that's going to support HDR, that's going to have the motorized zoom with the lens memories, And that's it. It's the only game in town. It's an Epson 5050 UB if you want to stick with what the same setup that you've got.
Literally 2 people with blowers outside my window. I'm watching it. Like, why they're following each other with blowers. Like, one guy's blowing and the other guy's right behind them also blowing.
Picking up the scatter that didn't get caught by the first one. It's efficient.
I guess so. So what I want to say is, because I know I can see what Rob's recommendation is here, and I agree with Rob 1,000,000%. But before we get to that, it is very, very hard for me to make recommendations for projectors anymore. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is that what you're really looking for can't be found in a projector. Because what you want
room setting like this, a not completely Batcave, not completely dedicated room.
Even then, I'm sorry, the black levels that you're like, I want those really good black levels. I want those really good. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. And when TVs also didn't get fully black, know, or as black, and they were also smaller, you would trade off those black levels for these much bigger images. Yeah. So if I were you and I was like, I'm dedicated to keeping a projector and I want to get rid of this anamorphic lens and all this other stuff, like Rob said, that to keep your current setup the way it is, you go to the 5050 UB. Yeah. Or you look for a short throw projector and put it at the front of the room and get rid of this whole thing. Now, that might be more expensive. I don't know what the prices are.
Doing it for constant image height, that's a real challenge with ultra short throw. That doesn't really exist at this point. Yeah.
And maybe it's not. But that's kind of where I think things should be moving. Like, if you're going to stick with a projector, you either... you accept that it's going to have the limitations that it's going to have as far as black levels and everything else. And you get something that's either the Epson 5050 or one of the super stupid expensive JVCs.
Right? Definitely above the price point that he
which is definitely above your price point. So that's not there. Or you go with an ultra short throw and deal with those limitations because you now no longer have to deal with this, across the room crap, which is really, for me, it's almost inexcusable that we still have to deal with that, from a home theater perspective. There's just so much technology out there that allows you to get this, everything at the front of the room. You don't have to run long HDMI cables. You don't have to worry about
I think
all the other limitations.
I think he was just hoping that the hype he had come across with this, Kickstarter, with this Vision Master, I think he was... It got it in his head that, things have moved on.
15,000 is a big number. That is a big number.
He's had his projector a while. Technology must have advanced. Things must be smaller and brighter and more efficient. All these types of things. It's like, there's no magic. It's a DLP projector. It's a DLP projector, and that hasn't really changed that much.
It is so easy to find people. It is so easy to find people that are impressed. Yeah. That will be impressed by something.
Well, and like I say, when you take this little black cube out of its box and you light it up, and it's like, hey, that's remarkably bright for the size of this thing, and it is. Right. It's right. So first blush impression. But you're coming from a pretty nice Epson projector already. Yeah. What you want is the nicer and newer Epson projector. That would be the one for replacement.
And even if you did that, though, I don't know that you would walk away from that upgrade and be like, yes, this was totally worth it.
Well, and that's where my real suggestion comes in, which is when you're saying, I want brighter, I want better contrast, I want black levels that, even what I'm going to suggest is not going to be OLED black levels, but it's going to be noticeably blacker black levels than the Epson projector, even than the 5050 UB in this non-dedicated, non-Batcave of a room. You're going to be able to keep the lights on, and that is to go with a 98-inch flat panel TV. That's the alternative here, because amazingly, you can do it at the price point that you're looking for. It's not going to be the flagship, but it's still going to be full array local dimming. It's going to be an LCD TV, and I'm going to be pointing you in Australia to TCL's C755 series, the 98-inch C55 from TCL, which is the equivalent to the North American QM751 G series. So you've heard me talk about the 98-inch QM851 G series. That's the flagship for the 98-inch size. That's the $4,000 US with the over 2,000 local dimming zones and the verging on 3,000, 4,000 nits type of light output. The 751 or the C755 in Australia, is the step down from that. It's about 1,000 local or 1,000, 1,500, 1,200, something like that, local dimming zones. Not quite as many local dimming zones, but still impressive. That like 2,000 nits, genuine peak light output. But this is the thing that is going to give you all the image quality things that you were talking about. It is smaller, right? It's larger than your 16:9 image that you're throwing right now, but it's smaller in width than your 2.4:1 image. So maybe you take the complication. Maybe you're able to sell that anamorphic lens. Maybe you're able to offset some of the costs selling your screen and your projector. And you could go, certainly you could get a full motion wall mount to be able to pull it out from the wall to increase your field of view if you want to do that. You might be able to afford a motorized full motion wall mount, which is going to have to be beefy because this is 98 inch. It's not lightweight, but 98-inch LCDs are not crazy either. You can absolutely mount this thing on your wall. So for all the image quality things that you said you want to do, this is my real recommendation. But I understand, like, honestly, taking down your 50-30 UB and putting a 50-50 UB in its place is a very easy swap. And if that's all you want to do, I'm not opposed.
It's not going to be smaller, though.
It's the same size. So he said it can't be any bigger, and it won't be. It's the same size. But I mean, that might be the simpler solution. So one of those two options. That's what
I think he put the smaller thing in there because he wants us to go with that.
Don't get the Valerian, man. That ain't what you want. That ain't it.
I will tell you, as somebody who's gone from a projector to an OLED, and it is the upgrade you're looking for.
Right.
A flat panel.
Well, and I mean, if you could afford the 97-inch OLED, then I'd point you at that. But you're not going to do that for 2,500 Australian dollars.
No, you're not. But what I'm saying is that even with this, the contrast differences, the brightness, the clarity, all the stuff that you're talking about, you're not going to get the perfect black levels where it literally with the lights off in my room, you cannot see the TV.
You can't.
It is gone. Yeah. It's just the image floating there in the middle of the room, and there's no bars. You don't see any bars because they're the exact same color as the TV, which is black. Yeah. And no, you won't get exactly that, but your black levels will be so much better than you're used to.
The QM751 is a really impressive TV. Yeah. I mean, it's almost the equivalent of last year's QM850.
And then you can knock down that weird old wall in your house too. Get that counter space back. Maybe that's a win-win there. Yeah. John has an in-wall JBL synthesis speakers. With no backer boxes at the moment. He originally had a 1-inch thick fabric mate wall panels covering his side and back walls, and he had 6 of his in-wall speakers behind them initially. So we've got some pictures here. It's a huge theater, it looks like.
It's a nice size theater for sure. But so he had in-wall.
No seats.
In-wall JBL speakers. Looks like 2 pairs of side surround speakers and then some surround backs close to his rear corners there. But in-wall speakers, and then he put these 1-inch thick panels over top of them, acoustically transparent, of course.
Right. He came to believe that thicker panels would sound better, so he custom built 18 new panels that are now 4 inches deep. They do sound better in his opinion, but now his in-wall speakers are recessed compared to the front faces of the thicker panels. He did construct cutouts in his new panel frame so that no insulation would obstruct the fronts of his in-wall speakers, and the cutouts are a few inches larger than the fronts of the speakers all around, and the sound is not immediately hitting the new panel framing, and all the speakers still have a clean line of sight to all the seats. I have to scroll down so we can see some of his cutouts here.
Yeah, panels now 3.5, 4 inches thick, but inside he's shown how they're constructed inside. So he's basically built extra frames inside of the outer perimeter of those panels, so that the in-wall speakers that he has a place to reside. There's no insulation in those extra framing parts, but those frames are larger than the faces of the speakers, so that it's not just like creating a tunnel for the sound or anything.
If you think about a 2x4 panel like we normally have, he's got speakers behind them, so he's cut out parts of the insulation and put a wooden frame around where the cutout is, so that there's free air basically right there. He's been told, though, that speakers should never be in a hole, so that the fronts of all his speakers need to be, and that the fronts of all his speakers need to be flush with the fronts of the panels that are covering them. So he's wondering what would be the best way to bump out his in-wall speakers to make that happen. Would it really make a worthwhile difference, or would it be negligible? The backs of the speakers are currently open inside the wall cavity, so if he built bump outs from the walls, would the backs of the speakers still be left open, or should the bump outs be sealed airtight?
I mean, here's the thing.
You've already done it, and you can listen to it.
Yeah, like this is your theater.
How does it sound to you?
Are you noticing like really weird high frequency reflections, and they're bouncing off of those frames, and you're like, oh, those side sounds, my side and rear speakers just sound totally different and awful now after I made this change. It doesn't seem like it, because he's like, things sound better here now that I have the thicker panels. So I'm like, well, if you're really not noticing a difference, then what's the problem?
That's really kind of the end of the question. So from a more theoretical standpoint, in-wall speakers are really designed with the idea that there's nothing but wall.
Yeah,
around
an infinite
them.
Baffle, so to speak. Yeah.
So putting an insulation around, like framing it around. In this case, it's not really insulation that frames it, but a piece of wood that's probably 4 inches thick.
Yeah.
Or wide.
3.5. Yeah.
3.5, however long, I guess, deep. I don't know.
Deep.
Anyways, proud of the. So there's a little wall right there that the sound could reflect off of, and then go in the opposite direction that it's supposed to go, which would delay it slightly, in theory, from the direct sound that came directly from the speaker, but it didn't reflect and then come back. So that could, in theory, make things sound worse. And you could make the argument. I think you can make that argument that it might in fact make things sound worse. And at the same time, I think that argument might fall apart the minute you actually tested it. I mean,
it really seems like this is not creating an audible problem from you. Because wouldn't you have come back and said, I did this, I put them up, and I'm noticing something weird about my sound. Is it that the speakers are not flush with the fronts? He's like, no, everything sounds better, but somebody told me I'm wrong, so am I wrong? And I'm like, I don't think you're wrong, dude. I think you're hearing that this is going to be a negligible difference if you move those speakers, and you have created a whole new set of problems for yourself that can be solved, but is kind of needless.
Yes, I mean, so could you do all the things you're talking about? Like, let's just put it this way: you could build a backer box to the speaker that is the size of this hole that you have made around your inside of your panels, and then maybe even goes into the wall slightly in order to have the right internal volume. However you did that, and then you could do all that, and then end up at the end and go, kind of sounds the same. If it were me, first of all, let's just remember I am at heart a very lazy man, and I do not want to do things I do not have to do. So I would do what you have. I would not have done what you did anyways, but I would have just put the panels, because he's got the panels spaced this way because they look right on the walls, right? And the speakers are placed where the speakers need to be.
But like, you would have left the original 1-inch panels on the ones that are covering the speakers, and then maybe put thicker panels in the other locations.
Yeah, I would have done something that's very. Yeah, I wouldn't have done. I would have put the panels. I would have made the panels look weird on the wall so that they weren't covering the speakers to begin with. Okay, and that would have been the end of that whole situation. But I wouldn't have done any of this stuff. But now that you have, the only thing I might have done when I was building these is I might have put like a small amount of insulation lining that cutout.
Yeah, on the inside, which he could still do. That's not.
You could still do that.
He left himself
it would
extra space.
It would literally only be to catch those very, very high frequencies. So it wouldn't. I mean, you could put almost anything in there, like velvet or something. I mean, it wouldn't have to be like an inch of insulation somehow glued on there. It could be something very, very minor, so that it's not hitting a very, very hard surface. I mean, you can get crazy with it and do some sort of like diffusion on the inside of this thing, which would be
that would have
way
to be too
overkill
big to be effective. No.
So the fact that you've already done it, you've already listened to it.
Yeah,
that's the end of that's the end. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean,
but
on the flip side, to like you're really just talking about essentially turning in-wall speakers to on-wall speakers. That's
Right.
really all you'd be doing here. In which case, you want a full backer box, you want a sealed backer box. The thing is, to have the correct internal volume for speakers like this, I mean, you'd basically have to turn the entire panel into the backer box for the speaker, thus defeating the purpose of having an insulation panel, because the entire internal dimensions would now just be the internal dimensions of the backer box for your now on-wall speaker. You might as well just remove the panel, like Tom said, and that would accomplish the same thing. Or, like you said, you've already cut the holes in the walls, so you could have a recessed extra part of the enclosure that goes into the hole you've already cut, and that can give you the internal volume you need. But I'm going to say that this is going to be a negligible difference, that this is not worth doing, because you would have come to us and said something sounds weird after I did this, and that's not the way you approach this. You know, somebody told you did it wrong. That's fine. You're asking us. That's great. So I'm going to tell you, ignore that person. Listen to your own ears. If your ears, you're like, everything sounds better now, but I'm wrong. No, you're not wrong. Everything sounds better now. End of story.
The internet says I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Reddit said I did it wrong when I can't post pictures on Reddit because people will make fun of me. Don't post pictures on Reddit. That solves that problem.
Sure, yes.
Mohsen in Australia, we mentioned how the only things in Mohsen's home theater that are not completely blacked out at this point are his mini split AC unit, which isn't likely to change, and his seats.
Yeah.
His wife thinks their current seats are fine, but Mohsen thinks getting some new seats could really enhance the cinema vibe, so he's keen to get some black theater recliners. I'll tell you what, I already agree with your wife. Mostly because she's probably already made a bunch of compromises for this theater, so maybe you just let this one go. He came across some black recliner seats on Amazon Australia that are shockingly affordable and probably shockingly uncomfortable. He'd be able to get 3 of them for only $600 Australian.
That is a red flag to me. That's
you can really feel the child labor when you sit down on them. just a nice touch. The suffering really comes through. They kind of.
I mean, they did list dimensions, because otherwise I'm like, were these dollhouse seats? Because even that seems too affordable.
Seats.
Yeah.
Was that simply too good to be true? At the price that low, they're sure to be terrible quality. Are they sure to be terrible quality? He'd appreciate their guidance. He'd like to know what tips and recommendations we have about black theater recliners in general, since the options and price points are so varied. I don't know that this is a battle I would want to ever even begin to fight with anybody. I don't love home theater recliners in general. God, these things are so cheap. They're $169.
I don't understand what's going on there, to be honest. I mean, the thing is, you're ordering it from Amazon. They are sold individually, so I guess on a very little financial risk, you could order one and just find out whether there's anything to these. These definitely, for sure, do not have a wall away reclining mechanism. This is one where the seat back just goes back, so you have to have a good distance behind you to be able to recline this thing. That's not the end of the world. It's just something to be aware of, and it's not like they're in any way trying to pull the wool over your eyes about that. They're very clear that this is not a wall away design, but still, I don't know how they're selling these seats at this price. I don't know what's going on there. It does raise suspicions in my mind, because that is a really, really inexpensive reclining seat. But
PU leather. Does it smell?
Polyurethane. So it's not leather. It's polyurethane.
It's pleather. Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, but still, even so, that's still incredibly inexpensive for any kind of seat. So I don't know what's going on there, but you could just take a flyer. You could order one and just find out for yourself, because you can send it back. It's Amazon, and regardless, it's a pretty small amount of money if you order just one to find out. But yeah, that definitely raises suspicions in my mind. I mean, I'm just thinking, if you are already comfortable in the seats and your wife already likes the seats that you have, you can make a black cover for a sofa. Like that's not that difficult.
Is it the color that's the problem, though? That's the thing I don't quite get.
That's the only thing
we've
pointed out, is that it's the only white thing in his theater are his seats. I'm like, you can cover a sofa. You can have a really nice cover for a sofa made.
Okay, I will give you this. Yeah. Let's do this. Let's go and buy the world's cheapest black sheet or blanket or something that we can find, and then throw it over the top of this thing, and then of your current couch, just to test how much difference the light reflecting off the couch makes versus not makes. And if your wife doesn't agree with you that it is a big difference that needs to be addressed, then you just say, okay, we're going to stick with this couch. And if she says, yeah, you know what, it does make a big difference, then you can explore these options that Rob's talking about, a cover or there is no world in which I trust a $200 seat. I'm sorry.
Yeah, something's weird there. I mean, on that front, like Valencia is pretty worldwide at this point, and they are nice seats. They got a whole bunch of different styles. So you can look up the Valencia home theater seating. It is 20x that price point, which sounds horrible, but when you're starting at $150, that it's not that crazy. But yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'm not like a Valencia shill type of person. There's actually other theater seats that I would personally probably get before the Valencias, but not because I think the Valencias are bad in any way, and they're so widely available now all over the world that's probably the easiest one to point you to, because some of the ones I like, I don't think they're available in Australia. So
well, and I mean, I've talked about that before, and it's still true. You can go and these modular couches, you can build yourself something that you can sit on beforehand. And I mean, ours, we were like doing the pricing for the insurance claim, and ours just wasn't that expensive. It wasn't nearly as expensive as I thought it was.
This one I'm in full agreement with Tom, actually. I think that's the way to go in this case here.
Because you can get them in multiple colors. You don't have to get leather. It doesn't have to be this pleather crap. I don't know what the foam feels like underneath. I just don't ever think it's a good idea to buy a seat that your butt hasn't touched. I mean, office chair is one thing. A couch is completely different. John in Ireland. First up, John wanted to mention that he enjoys Rob's appearances on DJ's Brightside Home Theater podcast. Who's this DJ person?
I know.
And he has some thank yous to give as well. A while back, we suggested trying a Sofa Baton U2 model universal remote to replace his Pioneer Receiver's remote that stopped working. It's been a great success, and now it now controls all of his equipment, including a North American Blu-ray player that he imported so he could play Region A discs, and the macro function never fails to make him giggle at how cool it is, so he thanks us for that.
Yeah, congrats. Thanks. I'm glad that worked.
Yeah. I'm glad too. I don't know that I was part of that, but I'm glad it worked for you. Next, he was using a 42-inch Pioneer Plasma. He got himself a 55-inch 4K TV that he put on a wheeled stand and only brought out for movies on weekends. He decided he wanted to fully replace his 42-inch Plasma and started hunting for a 65-inch TV. But then he heard us recommend a large TCL TV to someone else on the podcast, and long story short, he decided life's too short, and even though at around $2,000 euro, it was twice the price he was originally considered, he ended up buying himself an 85-inch TCL C805K model, which offers around 500 zones of local dimming and claims 1,500 nits with Dolby Vision HDR10 Plus support. He got rid of the Plasma, the 55-inch TV, and the wheeled stand, and instead of mounting the new 85-inch TV above the fireplace, it wouldn't fit anyway, which is good. He got a wall mount that can extend up to 4 feet out from the wall, and that allowed him to mount the TV in the corner of the room when it's not in use, but he can pull it into position when he's watching it. And the room actually looks tidier now, especially with all of his other equipment now in the corner below the TV. He loves it.
Hooray!
It's good.
Yes.
Great. How big was the TV?
85 inches.
Let's go.
That's nice.
So we've got a few questions. Is this TCL C805K close enough to the North American TCL Q7 or QM8 that he can use Rooting's picture settings as a guide?
So, I mean, to get you in the ballpark, just in terms of the basic picture mode that you're going to select, how the power saving and all that should be turned off, yeah, you could look at the Q7. It's not going to be identical one for one, but with a little bit of, logical thought, you're going to be like, okay, that setting looks about like this. Like, it's going to get you well within the ballpark. They aren't so far apart from each other. So there's not an exact North American equivalent to the C805K. They came out at different times of year, and it's almost like the C805 is almost in between the Q7 and the QM751. It's kind of like fell in between there. But yeah, it's pretty close to the Q7. I probably wouldn't go by the QM8 settings, but the Q7 settings, they'll be well within the ballpark. I'd be fine with that as a starting point for sure.
So most of his source devices seem to be working fine in his setup, but that North American Blu-ray player is having lip sync issues. He says he has it plugged into an HDMI 4, but it wasn't clear from his email whether he meant HDMI port on his TCL TV or the HDMI port on his Pioneer Elite receiver.
And I did a little bit of thinking after, and it must be on his Pioneer receiver because the HDMI ARC port is number 4 on the TCL.
Okay. He's still using a Pioneer VSX21 model from 2009, which still sounds great with the 7.2 speaker setup. In order to get 4K and HDR, he plugged his Amazon Fire TV stick into the TV's HDMI 2 port. The TV has been set to output audio via HDMI eARC, but that doesn't seem to work at all. No sound is coming out of his Pioneer 7.2 speaker setup. He can use 2009.
Yeah.
That's the big red flag for me right there. He can use optical audio instead, but it ends up coming out as 2-channel PCM or Dolby Pro Logic only. So are there some easy fixes for these issues? How do you feel about buying a new receiver?
Well,
or is it simply time for him to get a new AV receiver as well? The Denon X1800H is currently on sale in Ireland at a very attractive price. His 7 speakers are set to small. So would the Denon X1800H be sufficient? Would it provide him significant gains that would justify his purchase? It would fix all of your problems. How about that?
Yeah, this time, like we don't like to try and make people spend money needlessly, but this one, I think you can justify getting yourself a new AV receiver at this
2009,
point.
Man. You've gotten your money's worth out of this Pioneer.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you that I think I can guarantee you that audio wise, you're not going to go, oh my God, this doesn't sound so much worse than my Pioneer. I don't think that's what you're going to hear.
No, also don't expect it to sound leagues and leagues better. It's like it's
going to sound exactly the
quality.
Same.
But what will sound better is sound actually coming out of your speakers in surround sound versus not coming out at all. That is a whole gigantic improvement that anyone could tell apart. And
surround instead of stereo is also kind of nice.
So 2009 is when HDMI ARC really first started appearing, and I was looking at the back panel of the VSX21. I'm like, there's no indication that it has ARC. So that would explain why no sound.
It might not have even said it, but at the same time, that doesn't mean that it can do it. So
so that there's that would explain why no sound is coming out via eARC, because I don't think that model of Pioneer supported ARC at all, which is why you needed to revert to optical. So yes, I say now you can justify getting that X1800H. You don't really need to go higher in the lineup than that. That does have all the features that you're looking for a 7.2 setup. So I say go ahead and get that. You can feel good about that purchase at this point.
I mean, unless you want the better Odyssey, in which case
it's still XT in there. Yeah.
It's fine.
Hector. I just wanted to mention, you will want to plug, at that point, once you have the new Denon, plug all of your sources into the Denon, and you're only going to have one HDMI cable that goes from the Denon to your new TCL TV.
And that's the way you really want to go anyways. And that should solve your lip sync issues as well. Yeah. I mean, as far as it solves all the audio issues. If you still have lip sync issues, the problem is turn lip sync off.
Yeah, the HDMI lip sync feature that is described as fixing lip sync issues very often needs to be turned off to get the lip sync working. So, yes.
That's right. Hector makes use of a slightly unusual computer monitor arrangement. He needs quite a lot of image height, so he's basically been using 3 32-inch monitors arranged in a vertical stack, one above the other. But a single, even larger monitor would be helpful to him, so he started considering a 55-inch 4K TV. At the moment, Walmart is selling off the 55-inch LG B3 OLED model, and as far as you can tell, that TV does have a PC mode with full 444 chroma support, and he'd be using it as his secondary monitor. So is this a good idea or a bad idea? Some people online seem to discourage the use of an LG OLED TV as a computer monitor, but other people love it. So he's getting mixed messages. What do we say? They probably are discouraging it because there are a lot of static places on a computer monitor that they would be worried about burning with OLED. But there's no reason why you can't have your second monitor, turn off or not display all those, like the bottom bar thing.
Yeah, you can definitely get rid of the taskbar. I mean, that's just a Windows setting that any computer can have, is just have the taskbar hide.
And then you turn on the thing that makes it refresh the pixels and do all that stuff.
Yeah,
and
the Pixel Orbiter.
Don't use it all the time.
And if you've ever been worried about the Pixel Orbiter being like, oh, is it cropping some of my image when it slightly moves? On the LG OLEDs, they actually over-provision the total number of pixels that are there. So it's not that you literally have 3840 by 2160 pixels. There's actually a little bit of extra pixels around the edges so that they can do that Pixel Orbiter, and you still have all 3840 by 2160 image pixels displayed to you one for one. So you don't have to worry about that. There's some weird cropping going on there. So yeah, I mean, burn-in is sort of the concern that people have, and it can be legitimate because, like, let's say you put up 4 windows that have the, you know, the little graphic of the edge of the window around them, and you just leave those 4 windows in the same spot all the time. You could notice after, you know, several months of usage that once you shrink those windows, you're like, oh, I can still see the outline of the window because it was always in the same place day after day after day, the same 4 windows in the same places on screen, never ever moving. And you can get burn-in legitimately on an OLED there. So a few things you can do. One, you can lower that OLED pixel brightness setting to somewhere below 40. It won't be the brightest thing ever anymore, but that does help to mitigate that quite a lot. Never unplug your OLED, because some people, you know, do that. Let it run its pixel compensation cycles in the background while it's in standby. Don't just turn off the power and then unplug it right away and never let it run those compensation cycles. But also, like what a lot of people will do with a computer monitor like that, and it sounds like he is going to have, you know, windows that he's using, because he's like, I've previously stacked 3 32-inch monitors. I'm betting he has different windows open on things. You can, if you don't want to write a script yourself, just download a simple little script that just every so often moves your windows around for you, right? Slightly resizes them, slightly repositions them so that you don't have the exact same borders in the exact same spots all the time. You can just have a very simple little window script running in the background that changes the sizes and changes the locations of your individual program windows. And something like that would be worth, you know, applying here so that you don't have to worry about that problem. So the other thing that people complain about is the LG OLEDs do have automatic image dimming, basically. You know, if there are static elements on screen, it will detect that over time and it will dim the image. And there are the user settings that you can adjust, but there is still automatic dimming that some people, it really, really bothers them. With the B3, I might be wrong about this, but I'm pretty sure I was correct. The B3 still used the same chips as the C2 from the year prior. And that did allow you to go into the service menu, and we'll have a link to where you can see the full instructions on how to do this. It's not that difficult. Don't touch any of the other settings that aren't mentioned, because you can permanently mess things up when you go into the service menu of a TV. But there are just 2 settings in there, the global sticky reduction and the temporal something or other. Anyway, they're just other forms of automatic image dimming that you can turn off in the service menu. When you do that, now you don't have the thing where, you know, the white background on a static window causes the entire OLED to dim down more than you would want it to. So there are ways to certainly use it as a computer monitor, but I think the main thing is just, you know, downloading that little script so that you're changing those window sizes and changing their positions on a regular basis to avoid that window frame burn in. And other than that, it's going to look great. You're going to absolutely love having a 55-inch OLED as your secondary monitor if you need that much screen size. Yeah, you just press the inputs button and set it into PC mode, and it's simple as that. Now it supports 444, so that is definitely doable.
All right, who do we have left, Rob? You got, got a bunch.
We've got a bunch left on here that we'll tackle a bunch of these with Lee and Joe in the second episode, assuming that all goes to plan. So yeah, right now we've got on list, let's see, Brad, Chris H, Rich, Derek, Carlos, David, still going down here. Well, that was a long one there from David. Mark, and somebody else that's farther down this list as well, Brandon. And there was a couple that I didn't even put on here because I knew I was going to talk about them with Lee and Joe. So we'll see how many of those Lee and Joe and I get to in the second episode this week.
We shall see.
We shall see.
And unless things substantively change, I should be back for now.
That is the fingers crossed plan from here on out. Yeah. That's
right. So I will be, trying to rebuild my computer setup and trying to rebuild my podcasting setup. I have a mic now. I'm going to see what products there are out there, the review that can maybe help with that. And we're going to, again, thank all of the AV Rant listeners and everybody for your support and for your thoughts and concerns, and those of you that have reached out with help. I appreciate what you've done and what you've promised to do. And those of you that have sent donations to the PayPal, I appreciate that as well, of course. That will all be going towards rebuilding things. Believe me, when it becomes time for Tom to buy a new TV, it is coming directly from you people, because my wife is definitely not going to let me buy another 83-inch OLED.
Well, that's because it's going to be a 98-inch. That's what's going to happen.
It's going to be big this time. It's going to be so big. But we shall see. So there's a lot of stuff that's going to happen between, for the next year probably with me. And I will continue to talk about it and bring you along on that journey. Again, all the support that you've given me, either financially with products or just thoughts and all of that has been appreciated and well received. And I do appreciate everything people have done. And I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be finally in a situation like Sunday. I didn't leave this place. I just hung around the house all day, and you do not understand how chaotic my life has been for the last 6 weeks. I have been, like, last weekend, I spent all weekend picking up furniture from all over St. Petersburg, people who were getting rid of stuff and all of these other things, and meeting with friends and dropping things off here. And, because, I've got somebody, they're like, I got all these pots, Tom, do you want them? I'm like, there's a couple of them I want, but then I want to make sure that those people that I know or that I've met or I've heard have needed things, I've been delivering them to them and trying to, I say pay it forward, but really just kind of spreading around, the benefits of people being generous towards me and my family. So, again, thank you to all the AV Rant listeners. I want to thank our listeners of the week. I want to thank Dan and Raph for sending PayPal donations, and our 132 patrons over at patreon.com. Thank you to all of you.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you, Raph. And patreon.com/AVRant podcast. That's where you could go if you want to join the 132 patrons and make an automatic monthly donation. So yeah, big thanks for everybody for their financial support.
Yeah, thank Ryan, Sasi, Vince, Tony, Raj, and all the others who have either sent me something or have offered to send me things. I appreciate it. I know something arrived because I got an email that said that it arrived. So
that might have been Greg's, because I know Greg's was definitely on the way when we started this podcast. So that could be his. Yep.
Yeah. So we've Greg. That's right. So yes, we wanted to. I want to thank all of you, and then thank Greg as well for talking us up to send.
Yeah, that was really nice. Yeah, thank you, Greg, for talking us up. Thanks, Ryan, for that new offer. I think Tom will make use of that smaller center speaker, so he can use the center speaker you got already. He can use that as a subwoofer. That might be what happens there. It's big enough.
There's no room. There's no room in this itty bitty apartment for any of that. Honestly, I don't know how we're going to do it. It is so tight in here. We also got notes of gratitude from Mohsen, John, Hector, Tony, Raf, Carlos, David, and Mark. Thank you for thanking us.
For sure. I'll say those names one more time. Mohsen, John, Hector, Tony, Raf, Carlos, David, and Mark. Thank you very, very much for those notes of gratitude and encouragement. We definitely appreciate them. And it's a big thank you to everybody who continues to listen and send in your questions.
And if you want to get your question answered, all you have to do is ask. We will catch up. Don't worry.
Yeah.
We will catch up.
We'll be doing all right. Yeah.
We'll do an extra long episode, or I'll do a second episode one of these weeks once I can get my life back together.
We've got the second episode this week coming up, so there might not be that many left over. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see. So just keep those questions coming in.
Yeah.
For AV Rant, I'm Tom Andrew.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
Want your question answered? Send it to question@avrant.com. This is AV Rant.
Now go out and listen to something.